So, what was the final straw or final tipping point? Had you been deciding on you were going to leave at a certain date and it just came up and it just happened to fall in the pandemic, or was there a certain point where you just what factored into that decision?
Well, it's a good question. And the truth is, the tipping point was when I heard the word for the first time social distancing. Uh, I, I'm sure it's hard for people to think that there was a time where we had never heard that statement before, but there was a time where we had never heard that before. And I heard that for the first time from the governor of Washington State when I was in Spokane, Washington. I heard him say social distancing. And when I heard him say that, and I was in Spokane, I realized that choirs, at least at that level of my understanding in March of 2020, that choirs could not do what they do at that time.
Welcome to the podcast, Leading Change. I'm your host, Adam Christie. Our guest today is an internationally recognized leader, conductor, and educator. He lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and for the past 13 years has been the executive director of the American Choral Directors Association. He currently conducts the Tulsa Chorale and is the director of innovation at Trevecca University's Center for Community Arts Innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Tim Sharp. Tim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be with you.
Let's jump in. First off, in your bio, it talks about you're the Director of Innovation at Trevecca University Center for Community Arts Innovation. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Thanks, Adam. Yes, the mission for Trevecca University Center for Community Arts Innovation is to fill in that gap and to solve the problems between our professional schooling, our skill set preparation, and all the work that we did as artists to prepare to do our craft, and the actual application of the vision that we have for a community arts program. In other words, I'm working with and trying to help equip artists, musicians, dancers, people that have a vision for bringing their art and their vision for their art in their community to other people, but they really don't have the skills. They've never had the business training or the nonprofit training or working with boards or working with volunteers. They never had that kind of equipment given to them or taught to them in music school or art school or dance school. Of course they didn't. Most of them were very much, focused on, like I was, my craft as I should have been, and learning how to be a singer or a dancer or a pianist. And now people have a vision for bringing that into a community arts program, but they need to know things about nonprofits, about 501c3, about working with boards. And so what I'm trying to do is to fill in that gap and solve the problems so that they can really enact their vision in their community arts program. And this is really focused toward people who have a vision for bringing arts into community service, into community applications. People who work like in the Salvation Army, or people who work in churches, or maybe someone who's just had a vision for working with a refugee choir or some kind of program that really is not established in some other kind of a institution or organization. So it's very exciting work. And I love working with people who really have a vision for things that they want to do, but they don't know how to really, go after grants and do that kind of work. And that's what I'm trying to help them do.
So you just got done with your tenure as the executive director for ACDA, American Choral Directors Association, and you were very renowned for your leadership. Let's zero in on leadership for a bit. How would you define leadership? What is a leader to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the world is desperate for leadership in every area. Leadership is really enabling people to go where they want to go, but don't know how to do it. I mean, it's really about enabling folks and not only providing a vision, but mentoring people and guiding people toward that vision. That's leadership. What has happened in the last few years is we've had this new polarity between leadership and politics. I'm not, politics, political people could be leaders, but really a leader is a person who takes risks, who is guided by a vision and guided by a mission, and does things sometimes that are unpopular to try to get to a goal. And that is what I think a leader has to do: is take risks, set the pace, and show people how to get to where they want to go.
Out of your tenure for ACDA, what is the toughest decision you ever had to make?
Well, I would have had one answer a year ago before COVID pandemic came, and now a year later, it's kind of a different answer. I think my first answer would have been, had you asked me this in 2019, it probably would have been more about personal issues like, um, do I when do I leave a job and take a new position, or when do I know that my work is finished and I need to move on, perhaps, or reinvent? That probably was the toughest because it was personal. But for an organization, uh, it's a different matter. And if I'm looking at an organizational decision, the toughest decision I made, I think COVID this year probably has to come into play, and I don't want to ignore that. But the toughest decision I think I made in the last year was to shut down two of our regional conferences of ACDA when I could see that it was threatening the way that we do things in terms of the health of our singers, the health of our attendees at the conference, and just basically making the decision that we must shut this down. That's a decision that had financial implications. It was a series of decisions to follow science rather than following politics or following emotions, but to follow what was really in my gut, saying what is the healthiest and smartest thing to do for the health of our organization and for the health of our membership, which was, of course, that we had to start following sequestered, decisions about mask wearing, not gathering together. And that was tough because in the early stages of that, as we all know, it was politically challenged and it was very hard to take a position. But I felt like that we needed to side on the side of healthy singers and to wait this thing out. And that probably was the worst and hardest decision that kept me truly awake at night until we enacted that kind of statement from what we were dealing with in terms of choral singing.
So, what was the final straw or final tipping point? Had you been deciding on you were going to leave at a certain date and it just came up and it just happened to fall in the pandemic, or was there a certain point where you just what factored into that decision?
Well, it's a good question. And the truth is, the tipping point was when I heard the word for the first time, social distancing. Uh, I, I'm sure it's hard for people to think that there was a time where we had never heard that statement before, but there was a time where we had never heard that before. And I heard that for the first time from the governor of Washington State when I was in Spokane, Washington. I heard him say social distancing. And when I heard him say that, and I was in Spokane, I realized that choirs, at least at that level of my understanding in March of 2020, that choirs could not do what they do at that time and practice social distancing. So when I heard that word in Washington State, when we were in Washington, I said, "That's it. We cannot do this." And that's when I decided we couldn't do it. And I phoned my president of the Southern Division that was in Mobile, Alabama, having their conference, and I said, "We're shutting this down in Spokane. We need to do the same thing in Alabama."
Okay. Do you mind if we go towards your tenure a little bit as ACDA executive director? What was the tipping point for you deciding to step down? Was there a certain date you had set in mind for a certain amount of time, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I had the average lifespan of an executive director of any association, I learned a few years ago, was 7 years. And I was entering my 13th year as executive director of ACDA. And I had said all along that I did not want to um, be finish my entire career as executive director of ACDA. What I really wanted to do, I set out a vision when I started the work, and I wanted to complete the vision of the things that I had outlined to the board that hired me and to the search committee that hired me and to the membership of ACDA. There were 4 things that I absolutely felt we needed to do. And I felt like we were entering into a stage after COVID hit. We were entering a stage in which many new things were coming into the environment of choral directors, and they're very important. And I'm very committed to continue to work through those things. But those things were no longer a part of my original vision. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to reinvent my vision for ACDA, or is this the time after COVID in which someone else comes along and needs to chart the course for what the new work will need to be after we enter into the new realities? And so actually it was already in my mind that I was going to probably retire at that point from my work. But COVID really accelerated my thinking and saying, this is the time perhaps for the transition to happen, because whoever is working next is going to, I think we'd all agree, is going to have a new vision for the organization. Now, I'm very capable of coming up with a vision for what is post-COVID, but I'm also very aware that at this point in my life, there are other things that I would like to do as well. So it was really a timing issue. And I think COVID honestly accelerated what I was already beginning to think. And I don't feel bad about that at all. I feel like the truth is, many of the things that I have worked on will continue to work their way out post COVID. And so there'll be a lot of my fingerprints on things that happen in the future. But I think it's time for a new vision to come along that will be necessitated by the realities, the economic realities, the health realities, just what people are going to need to do. I think that's going to require a new vision for the organization, and I'm very willing to pass that on to the next person that wants to do that. Also, the truth is, and you may know this, I had COVID. My wife had COVID.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were very early on. I had it in March and April of this year, and so that really focused my priorities on family, taking care of my mother. My mom's 92, and I wanted to make sure that she stayed healthy and that I could help her out. And so a lot of things with my own tenure and what I was looking at for myself and what I felt like was best in terms of transition for the organization kind of came together at that point. So one person told me once, and I think this is important for your viewers and listeners because of your podcast focus. A person once told me that when you think more about what you've done than when you then you're thinking about the future, that's the time for you to consider a transition. I'll say that again. When you think more about the past than what you're thinking about going forward or the future, that's the time for you to think about, are you ready to move on? And I think I had come to the point where I was thinking more about what we had done than what we're going to do. And I think that was an important message for me to say it's time to transition and let someone else do the work going forward. Now, I'm a life member of ACDA, and I will be a choral director all my life. So I'll be participating, but I think it's time for me to, pass on what we've done to other people to continue the good work that we've been working on.
What were your symptoms when you had COVID?
Well, the first thing I had was temperature. I noticed that my temperature I was feeling, that kind of feeling you get with aches and pains because of your temperature elevation. And then classically, I lost my sense of taste and smell. I couldn't. I came home from Mobile, Alabama, where we had our last. We shut it down, but I spoke to the group there, and then that was the last concert, and then we dismissed everyone. When I came back to Oklahoma, my wife and I went out for Mexican food, and I couldn't taste it. I mean, if you can't taste the spice of a jalapeno pepper or or lime rice, something's wrong, and I could not taste anything. So I had an elevated temperature, and my sense of taste and smell had gone, and I had these aches and pains, and that was my first clue. So I went in, and sure enough, I tested positive, and then my wife got it, probably from me, and she actually had pneumonia. She had and had to go to the hospital for 10 days. So she was in a severe situation, and I was in a milder situation. But Adam, I watched. I couldn't go see her. I couldn't go in the hospital, and I think that really sensitized me early on to how serious this was, and it really shaped the way I looked at the decisions I had to make after that about people congregating, because I saw what it was doing, and many people hadn't had a first or second or third uh, degree of separation, relationship with anyone that had it, and so they didn't know. And I don't blame them. It was very hard to know, but I did, and I think it really shaped the way I my outlook on what COVID could do.
So, a word that you kept bringing up in your previous answer was the word vision. You
Right.
talked about, should you change your vision post COVID, or should you let somebody else start a new vision? Um, what needs to be a part of a compelling vision? What do you think when you're casting a vision to your crew? What needs to be a part of that compelling vision?
I think vision is aspiration. What do you want to see happen? And what needs to happen? And that combination of what you want and what needs to happen, and it's aspiration. Vision is aspiration. What do you aspire to do? And I will say that I don't think a vision necessarily has to take place in someone's lifetime. A person can say, I have a vision to do this. And if you truly have that vision, if you're motivated by it, and you see it, I want every child in the United States to have the opportunity to sing in a choir. That's a vision. And that may not happen in my lifetime, but I want to work toward making that happen. And that to me is a vision. It's the aspiration of something. Now, it can't be something that you think is totally impossible, um, but it needs to be, you believe, in the right combination of forces achievable. And I believe one of my vision pieces for ACDA was to provide the opportunity for every child to sing. And that guided every kind of decision that I would make about music education, is how can we help get children into a choir somewhere? That means public school, it means private, it means community, it means entrepreneurial work, it means lots of different things. But how can we give kids an opportunity? Why did I want to do that? Because I believe if children have the pedagogical and the opportunity to experience singing with others and singing themselves, I believe they will be hooked for a lifetime, and it will feed every aspect of what we do as choral directors. Every choir will benefit from that vision. So that was very sincere for me. It was, and I continue to have that vision. And it was a vision that I brought to ACDA. I believe it's aspiration, and I believe it must be very simple, and it must be compelling. And honestly, I believe it must be emotional. I believe it must incite emotions on the part of the person that hears it. I think that's an important ingredient in a vision statement. It makes an emotional connection with somebody that says, ah, I feel something when I hear you say that.
Tim, when you think about ACDA and your period of time you spent doing it over 13 years, what do you wish you would have done differently? Do you have anything you wish you could have redone?
That's a great question. I tell you, I don't lose any sleep. I don't I don't wake up thinking, shucks. Um, but it's an insightful question. And no organization is perfect. My goodness, even our democracy in the United States, we're witnessing right now. The idea of a more perfect union. It's taking a lot of hard work and a lot of stress and a lot of confrontation. But when I look at ACDA, if I think about what more could I do, there's the fiscal stuff. There's the stuff like could I have raised more money? Could I have increased the membership even more than we did? You think about those physical things, and then you think about these inspirational things. Could we have moved closer to a choral culture in the United States? Could I have done something that would have jettisoned that? But I woke up every morning working on those things, so I don't feel bad about those. The things that I think that ACDA will need to do going forward probably lie in the area of governance, in which we probably will need the organization will need to think about how it governs itself. That's probably an area. But I honestly, Adam, I had decided on my watch I wasn't going to tackle that. I recognized it going in that governance is one of those things that people like to dabble with. But I thought, no, we could change it here, we could change it there. But in the end, would it really be any better? And I didn't have a vision for making that change. So I think probably governance would be the area that ACDA might tweak in the future. And what I mean by that is that ACDA began as a professional organization led primarily by academics, people in higher education that were basically trying to up their own ability and challenge themselves to do better. Well, for years and years and years, ACDA has been led primarily by college and university folks. And I think to really be the diverse organization that we need to be, we've got to have a governance situation and a governance system that represents much more diversity than just college and university. I think it needs to have children's choir, church musicians, community choir people, barbershop harmony people. It needs to be much broader than only college and university. But I say that, and I also recognize that college and university people have been the people that have held ACDA together for 60 some years. So it's not only do we need diversity and representation, but we also need people that step up that are willing to take on that role to do that kind of work, not just have the title, but also do the hard work. And college and university people have done it because they get rewarded for it. They get promoted and they get tenure by doing service to their professional organization. Community choir people don't. Church musicians don't. Many high school people don't. Middle school teachers don't. So it's very hard to see why would a middle school teacher have a high office in ACDA when they're not rewarded for doing that. So I think that whole governance piece of ACDA has some years that actually some work to be done. But as I say, that wasn't something that I decided I was going to do on my watch. So I promise you, I'm not losing any sleep over that.
Well, I'll just tell you that. So you were doing it for 13 years. That would be 2007 when you 2007, 2008?
2007 is when I got the job, and then 2008 is when I actually moved into the national office. Yeah.
Well, I would have never chosen my career path that I did had I not, had ACDA not been present in my life as a kid. So here are some ways just the ACDA has really impacted me, just so you know the breadth, and maybe you already do, but I just feel like I should express it to you.
Please, yeah.
So The honor choirs, ACDA honor choirs were huge when I was in high school. Just the fact that you could be selected, that's where I got to get inspired from people like Jonathan Reed or Henry Leck, who had huge, profound effects. You were there with them you were with them for 2 days, and somehow those 2 days would shape your whole life, and you didn't know it. Or there's the ACDA award that you get as a senior or whatnot for a lot of schools. And then I think one of the most impactful things is summer dialogue. When I did that in Minnesota, their summer dialogue is amazing. It's and also the ACDA college chapters are fantastic too. Also took part of those, so it has shaped so much of what I do. So on behalf of everybody who has also been shaped by those things, thank you so much for all your work.
Well, those are incredible, iconic statements that you're making there about what ACDA has done to shape you. I echo that. I was a member long time before I was executive director, and it absolutely shaped my life to have colleagues, networking, people to call on, peers, that whole to know I wasn't alone in that world, because you know how it is. Once you get out on your position, you feel pretty alone. You're the only one doing what you do, but to have that bank of folks behind you, and also, my daughter grew up in honor choirs of ACDA, and to see other kids like her, so she wasn't just this singing nerd. She found lots of kids that loved what she loved. I think it's just an amazing net that we cast. So thank you for saying that. And those, of course, are some of the things that we all inherited, that our forefathers and foremothers um, charted out and carved out for us. And they have really created an incredible environment. And your chapter in Minnesota, one of the strongest chapters in the United States, really a leader for innovation and just great best practices there. Absolutely.
It is amazing, and I almost find it transcendent, what we do in music, because especially as a teacher in school, there aren't many subjects where you can remember that subject your entire life. Like even when I learned math skills, there's very few math skills that I remember. Um, but I mean the basics I remember obviously, but I can probably sing some part of every song I ever did in school,
Amazing.
just because those really stick with you. And you don't hear those of us who believe in an afterlife or whatnot. If you look at even the Bible, um, there aren't I don't know many school subjects that you learn on earth, but they transfer to the afterlife. But you know that music, for some reason, no matter what the religion is, there is music in the afterlife. You see it in the Bible, you see it in heaven. They talked about the visions of it. It's just amazing. I don't know of any other people that get to do stuff like that, but directors and teachers of music. So again, it's just profound what you do and what you've done. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I've never really thought of it the way you're saying it, that because I'm talking about lifelong singing and you're talking about eternal life.
Eternal.
And
Absolutely. Yep.
thank you for that, because I'm going to ponder that for the next few days. I've done quite a bit of writing recently, using the images of angels singing. I did a new work that I composed called Angel Band, and
Hmm.
always been taken by the idea that the announcement was chosen to be to come through angels singing. I mean, isn't that amazing? That
Mhm.
let's say that you and I were not believers. Let's just say we're just looking at it for face value and saying, "Oh, it's a phenomenon." That a religion would talk about that this announcement is going to come through singing. Isn't that great? Let's
It's
say we're,
great.
we're going to announce the constitution of a new country, but you know what, folks? We're going to deliver it through song. Wow, that is so cool. So I love what you're saying there, and there is a culture that I met in China, the uh, Maui, excuse me, Miao culture. culture, in China, in central China, and mountain people. And they
Okay.
do everything. Get this, Adam. Everything that's important to them, they ceremonialize it through song. So if
Hmm.
you're getting married, they circle you and sing through the ceremony to you while you're getting married. Every ceremony, everything that's important in life, they started out with song. I was so blown away by that culture when I got to know it a few years ago. And it's tucked away in the mountains of central China, unknown to most people. But I just absolutely love what you're saying is that we're participating in something that goes way beyond the moment and way beyond the activity. That is a beautiful thought.
Yeah, it's certainly life changing.
It is. Mhm.
What is some small thing you do every day that you think makes you a better leader?
I honestly focus on what I do early in the morning every day to get centered. And for me, that means I actually play Bach cantata every morning. It does several things for me. First of all, Bach was an incredible melodist. I think we all know that. But sometimes people get lost in his counterpoint and you lose the beauty of his melodies. So, what I love about Bach is that I get melodic and harmonic inspiration, but I also get this polyphonic inspiration and homophonic inspiration. So I really get almost my entire vitamins in one composer, and that's J.S. Bach. So every morning I listen to a Bach piece, and I might listen to something else in addition to Bach. But what I do is I start my day um, with well, first of all, I move. I do my exercises in the morning, but right after my movement comes my meditation, and my meditation includes a focus on what we do as choral musicians. And that leads me to Bach because I never am ever going to run out of his music. So that really helps center me and it gets me on the path of what it is that I do. I'll never be in his, you know, in his arena, but he inspires me so much. His music inspires me and it focuses me no matter what music I'm doing it focuses me. So I actually have my what I call my M&Ms. I move first, I meditate second, and that includes my music that I listen to. Thirdly, I master. I go right into the most important work of my day. And then fourthly, I manage. I do all the mundane after that. So movement, meditation, mastery, and then management is basically my mantra for getting me through the day. I told uh, 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 I was writing this to someone recently, and I put meditate, and somehow I spelled it wrong, and spell correction came up, and it was medicate. So a fifth M was added to my M's, meditate and medicate, but medicate was not one that I intended. The I call them my M&Ms, and I give them to everybody and saying, if you'll follow the M&Ms, move, meditate, master, and manage, and you should have a pretty productive day.
By the way, M&Ms. Have you ever tried the caramel M&Ms, the blue
Oh my
caramel
gosh.
M&Ms?
I will find them tomorrow. Thank you for that.
Uh, oh, oh, you got to find it. But just, I promise you, it's not my fault if you get addicted. It's really
I,
not. They're so good.
are they like everywhere, or do you have to go to a special place?
No, they're right now. You can get them everywhere. No,
Caramel
they're great.
M&Ms. Oh my
Blue,
goodness.
they're in a blue bag. Yep, yep.
Happy New Year.
Some people would fight you to the death between them and peanut M&Ms, but or peanut butter. I mean, that's a battle. But I think caramel wins every time.
I'm going to go for caramel. I'm going to find them tomorrow. Thank you.
So you were a professor. Uh, well, you are a professor, I guess, kind of, right?
That's right.
How long have you taught for?
Well, I started my career as a teacher. Right after grad school, I taught at Taylor University, and then I went to the King's College, and then I went to Belmont University. And then when I and I went to Rhodes College. And then when I left Rhodes, I took the executive director position for ACDA. But while I was at ACDA, I also taught part time for Oklahoma University since was in the same area, and I taught a doctoral course for them. And I was able to teach online courses as well, but just because I wanted to keep my finger in my toe in the whole game there. I didn't want to lose, and I've been writing all along. I've never stopped my writing since I was doing nonprofit, administrative work. So I really, in a way, don't feel like I've ever left the professorial role. Although my 13 years of, ACDA was focused on nonprofits, I still tried to keep coursework going at some small level. So I feel like, and I would almost say mentoring rather than professorial. I really feel like just sharing and passing forward, or giving forward is what that's all about. And I don't think I've let go of that. And now at Trevecca, uh, although I'm really dealing with adult learners, I still think that's very important. I love undergraduates, I love young people, but right now I'm more focused on the adult learner.
By the way, I love your Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
so good.
Thank you.
It
How
is
nice.
so good. It's like becoming the standard. And it
Well, how
is so
sweet.
good.
Have you
So
done SATB or double SSATB or what?
I think I just did the SATB. Yeah, I think I didn't have a big enough choir to do the SSATTBB. But I loved it. It's great.
Well,
Very
thanks.
skillful.
I was so inspired. Rachmaninoff played that particular harmonic setting on his first concert at Carnegie Hall, and that really knocked me out. That a Russian would come to the United States and sit down at the piano and improvise our national anthem. That really moved me, and that's his harmonization. And it's also his little snippets of counterpoint that I copied from him. But two or three of the things in there are I'll claim myself.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank
Which teacher do you think, and I'm sure there's been many, but if you had to pick one, maybe you could say two, but if you had to pick one, which teacher do you think had the biggest impact in your life?
Well, I know you will resonate with this. I'm going to tell you the teacher that I comes to mind, and I'm afraid too often our teachers are those graduate school teachers who were really focused on us and our vocation and what we really knew what we wanted to do. And that's truly who I'm going to say in just a second. But I don't want to overlook those teachers that, I had way back in third grade who said, you really have a gift for singing, or, we want to make sure you sing at the talent show this year. I'm afraid some of our younger teachers don't get the spotlight that they should. I mean, our early teachers that they should get, because if it weren't for them, we would not have gone on. We would not have been encouraged. They would not have seen the gift in us and encouraged it. So I'll say the one that I'm going to say, but I also want to say I can name a few teachers way back in elementary and middle school who also promoted, but they were also interested in me as in math and other things. But the teacher that really zoned in on me as a person with maybe teaching potential, leadership potential, was a man by the name of Don Hustad, who was at my graduate school. He was an organist and a conducting teacher who really, really pushed me in score study and really challenged my thinking about how I look at the score and what it means to be a conductor. And because he really poked through and challenged me at the deepest level of what it means to analyze a score and to teach a score, and what the stewardship and the ethics of standing on a podium mean. Um, that was the guy, Dr. Hustad, who really, really made a big influence. Two other teachers, similar. Dr. Jerry Warren at Belmont University was my voice teacher, and J.P. Jardine at Bluefield College was my first music teacher. And those three college professors and graduate school professors really, really lit the fire under me. And I really kept thinking, I want to be like you. I want to do what you do. And that's probably, the mark of a mentor there, saying, I want to be like you. And they had those qualities. A lot of it was that they had academic humility. They balanced their personal life with their professional life. So it wasn't just their love for music. I also saw them as caring human beings who were willing to share their life with me and share their non-musical life with me. They took me on field trips. They gave me personal counseling. And those three people, J.P. Jardine, Jerry Warren, and Don Husted, undoubtedly were the people. In fact, when I wrote my book on mentoring in the ensemble arts, I have a briefcase that's pictured on the front of that book. And that briefcase that's there was given to me by Dr. Don Husted. He sent it to me just basically as an iconic statement saying, look, this briefcase that held your dissertation, that held all your papers, that all the stuff that I did to work with you, I'm now giving you my briefcase to say, now you take it and you continue the work. And that was such an amazing gift on his part. He sent it to me in a box. It had no note, but when I opened it up, I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly why he sent it to me. He was saying, I'm passing this on to you. You are my protege. I recognize you as such. And, I embraced it as an icon. I keep it on my desk right now as an icon of, everything I've gotten from somebody else. And he was a person who was gracious enough to share it with me without any pride or without any ego, basically to say, it's my time to give it to you. So unquestionably, when you ask me that question, he's the guy that comes to mind.
Question: what do you see as the outcome of post-COVID for music ensembles in school? See, right now, there's been a if you look at some of the Facebook groups, and there's been a big decline in the school music programs because of COVID. People have dropped out of band and choir because, for whatever reason. I mean, there's a lot of reasons right now. Maybe they're not doing the things that they really love to do, like pep band, or they don't want to sing with a mask, or their schools or district isn't allowing singing at the time, or whatever. So programs have shrunk. When COVID's done, do you see there being um a a problem or trouble getting those kids back in? Do you worry about that at all?
Yeah, I would say I do worry about it. I think it's high on my list of concerns. Um, it's very difficult to recruit right now. We all know, what are we recruiting people into? It's very hard. Performance was a huge, huge motivator. It was a huge draw for us. And so, Adam, I think if it's exposed anything, it's exposed that our pedagogy, that we need to balance more pedagogy with performance, that we've really got to make the learning of music enjoyable, fulfilling, uh, a journey of its own. And we've got to love that and embrace that and make that a part of our recruitment, that you can learn this mystery language that we have, you can learn the magic behind um, why we like music so much. I think pedagogy, the learning of music and the learning of the process has got to accelerate. And maybe COVID exposed that we were too far into performance as motivator, and that we need to do work in pedagogy as motivator. So that I believe is something I'm going to work on, that theory that we've got to accelerate pedagogy and make that more fun, more interesting, more motivating than we perhaps did in the past. I am worried about it. I believe we may have lost some folks. Now, do I believe it's going to come back strong? I believe people are going to come back. I mean, I don't know that the ones we've lost, but we will be able to. We've always recruited well. But, this health thing, the spacing thing, new viruses coming out. Are we going to actually be able to be cheek to cheek and shoulder to shoulder on risers the way we've done forever? I mean, are we going to come out of this with a new realization of maybe some spacing requirements that we need to be healthier as singers? I think this is all going to kind of shake our cage a bit, and I believe it's a concern. So I to to come down to where I'm going to focus personally, I'm going to focus on what can we do to make pedagogy more interesting, more of a fulfillment as a part. Not that I want performance to go away. I love performing, but I think the whole podium thing of us as conductors has taken a real shot, and we've got to think about what can we do to change this a bit so that pedagogy can become an education and process can become significant so that we don't lose the motivation when performance is taken away. Now, don't hear me as harsh. I'm not judging us. Who knew? I didn't see it coming. But I believe this is where we have to turn. And I am concerned. I'm with you on that. I think we've got to look at that realistically. Yes.
So, as we close up, Tim, and thank you so much for your time, what encouragement do you have for our audience?
I think that everyone should know that singing is so important to people, and they want what we have to give. The truth is, it's almost magical to humans. People love what we have in music and what we are able to show them and lead them to. So be encouraged, everyone, that what we have and what we've learned and what we've gained and what we've experienced in music is going to come back, and that it's going to be absolutely embraced in the days ahead when we're able to do what we do, and even as we continue to try to do it in virtual or hybrid forms. People really want it. So just take the deep breath and continue to add and provide continuity for your singers, and please keep renewing yourself. Do what it takes. Podcasts such as this one, that piece that I talk about meditation and mastery in the morning. Do not lose the discipline that you normally have when you're working with your groups. Please find ways to continue your own discipline so that you're fed. You have to be fed to feed others. So work to find TED Talks, podcasts such as Adam's podcast here, ways to feed yourself because you are needed and what you have is very much desired by other people.
So, you thought we were going somewhere, but we're not. We're now entering the curtain call that we're including in on today's episode. Most of our curtain calls you can catch at our website, www.leadingchangepodcast.com. But for a couple episodes, we're going to include them in the podcast so that you can get a feel of a little bit of what they're like. So, just an informal time where we kind of ask just a few off-topic questions just to find out more about our guests. So, Tim, one of the questions we always ask, because I just love this question, is how did you meet your lovely wife?
Oh, how sweet. Well, I'm not making this up. I met Jane in choir. No joke. I bet there's lots of people like me that'll say that. But I was in the Belmont Chorale. We were on a retreat to start the school year, and I looked across, and that pretty alto caught my eye, and I found out more about her. I found out she was also a music major, and she was a recorder player. And lo and behold, I started showing up at the early music concerts. Guess what my interest in Renaissance music was before that? It was nil. But all of a sudden, I got interested in Renaissance music because she was a recorder player. And so I met her in choir and I met her in music school. And there we go.
Gosh, it's like those scenes on TV where she asks you if you're into Renaissance music, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm into Renaissance music," and then you go home and you're trying to find out as much as you can in case she asks you again.
Right, exactly right. Well, I was one of like 8 people in their first concert audience, you know.
Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of dead composers?
Oh my gosh. Well, it would be Brahms. Brahms would be that first one. He's my desert island composer, uh, and I am not just being cliche. Bach would be up there because I love him as a melodist. A lot of people have other reasons, but I think his melodies are, and then he kept coming up with more and more melodies.
Mhm.
Unbelievable. So Brahms would be there. Bach would be there. I think Dave Matthews would be up there. I love him as a songwriter. I think he's one of the most creative songwriters that I know. So I put Dave Matthews up there. And as a performer, I would put Sting up there. I think I love his career. I saw him on Free Penny Opera on Broadway. Um, I, I, I love his concerts that he does. I love his songs. So it would be Brahms, Bach, Dave Matthews, and Sting.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You could. There's no amount of money you could have paid me to figure out who those four were exactly, because there's just no way I would have guessed Sting and Dave Matthews on there. That's great. That's great. Um,
Yeah,
so do you have any pets, animals?
yeah. I've got two cats. I inherited one. My daughter went away to college, and we inherited her cat. And we already had a cat. I'm allergic to cats, and so I have two women in my life, my daughter and my wife, who want cats. And so I say, "What's up with that?" But they found a cat that has no dander and does not excite my allergies. So I've got a Russian Siberian cat. Well, it's my wife's cat, but I like him, Simba. And then my daughter's cat is a street cat that she rescued, and her name is Fanny, and I've adopted her. So I coexist with Fanny and Simba. Again, they feed them, they deal with the maintenance, but I'm tolerant of cats. I prefer dogs, but I just because of my work on the road, dogs require some work and some walking, and I just couldn't do that. So maybe in retirement years, I'm going to go back and find my dog that I'd like to have. So right now it's cats.
What did your parents do for occupations?
My dad was a pastor. He was a Baptist minister. He passed away about 3 years ago, and
Oh,
my
I'm
mom
sorry
was
to
a
hear that.
school teacher. Uh, she taught early childhood, so she was a kindergarten teacher. Both of them loved music very much, and they encouraged me in music. But they were pastor and early education.
So let's say you go on a drive. Um, you have 30 minutes and it's just you and your wife and you're going on a drive. What are you guys listening to?
Probably NPR. We're probably going to All Things Considered or uh, one of the talk radio shows that are on NPR. Something that honestly gives me world news or perspectives other than this focus that we've had for 4 years of politics. I really am very interested in stuff that's going on outside of just what we're preoccupied with in the United States. So NPR has been my go-to place for a long time, but certainly for the last 4 years, NPR is probably where we go. Not just for classical radio, but mainly for talk and just to get world perspective. After that, truly, I'll go to Sirius XM and go to where I can find Dave Matthews and Sting.
And our last question is, what do you like to eat for sweet foods? Like, what's your favorite sweet, your go-to food?
Yeah, I'm a real sucker for suckers. I like the little the dumb uh, d- um, what are those
Dum
little
Dums.
dum dums? Sorry, dum dums. If I can upgrade that a little bit to a Tootsie Roll, uh, um, the hard candy kind,
Uh-huh.
and if I can upgrade that to one of those blow pops that you actually get bubble gum on the inside, and then if I can upgrade that to one of those like $2 suckers that are on at like truck stops where you can find them on a little tree. But hard candy on a stick. That's my that's my downfall right there. But you know what? It lasts a long time, and I don't like crunch them very fast. I let them work their way out. So it's probably not the worst thing. What I can't do is what you just talked about. I can't do like M&Ms or Junior Mints because I just can't stop. I mean, I can't like you give me a bag of M&Ms, doesn't matter the size. I'm going to keep, you know. So a sucker is sort of my safety thing. I can just do it and stay with it. There's probably a psychological thing going on there, but I don't know.
Great. And so, as far as social media or websites, where can people connect with you online?
Yeah, my website is the Tim Sharp because everything else was taken, but thetimsharp.com. So the feels a little weird, but anyway, it was possible. So thetimsharp.com is there. Facebook, my Facebook page is open to everyone, so I keep it very public. Therefore, I don't say much controversial on Facebook. I don't say much controversial anywhere on social media, frankly. But I'd say Facebook and thetimsharp.com will be where I'll hang out for the next few years.
Great. Well, I will do an exit there. Basically, thank you so much, Tim, for your time. And I thought, boy, that was just great. Just so much fun getting to know you and what an amazing person you are. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Adam. Tell me about your family real quick. Are you single or you got family?
No, it's just me. Just
Okay.
me. Yep. Just me and my two dogs.
Oh, good. Very cool. Very cool. Well,
Did,
listen, great to hear it. I assume you'll edit and get all the stuttering out and everything. But
yep.
if I can give you anything in follow up, I'm happy to do so.
Absolutely, and we will send you the video to give your approval. And after you give us the approval, we will put it out. And all we do is take the audio from the video and then upload that for our podcast audio.
Perfect. And by the way, really great questions. All your questions were very insightful and very smart.
Great. Well, it'll be hard, but tomorrow I talk with, I don't know if you know Peter Boonshaft.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on tomorrow. So I get two wonderful guests in a row. So I'm very blessed. So thank you so much for your time. And we'll be in touch as we ship information back and forth.
Outstanding, Adam. Best wishes to you. Stay well.
You too. Thanks so much, Tim. Best to you and your wife.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.